You're listening to Fathers Handling Business, where fatherhood meets real talk and real solutions. Here are your hosts, Cali and Donté, ready to dive deep into the art and science of parenting. Let's get started and empower the dad in you.
In 2024, a lot of people measure the success of a man by how much money that he makes. A lot of cases, men themselves feel like having monetary success can almost give you leeway with a lack in your character. But I do feel like there's an essence and an energy that you have. Where did that come from?
So for me, it's, if I'm made in his image and likeness, then I have to find other men who stand firm in being made in his image and likeness.
Yes.
And then learn from those men because they are replicas of what I want to be, right? And you have to tell God, like, this is, what I aspire to be, God. Show me what does a successful 42-year-old man look like to you. Not my version.
Right.
Not my version.
Every time I thought I knew I was wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think for me, the humility in that is not letting the money make me think that I'm better than what I am.
Yes.
Right? True, financially, yes, I am that. What about my moral equity? What about my life equity? What about my spiritual equity?
Yeah.
What about my mental equity? What about my emotional equity?
Yeah.
Like, are those other components, those personal KPIs, are they in place? That's always been my thing.
I love that.
Yo, that was deep. So that was Miss Sarah interviewing the Wall Street Trapper.
The Wall Street Trapper.
The Wall Street Trapper, 42-year-old black man.
Hey, Woody.
42-year-old convicted felon, and now he's a Wall Street Trapper. Like, made it out the jail cell and made it in life, financially extremely successful.
Financially, yep.
And now he's on this podcast talking about, your character despite your income. So we know a lot of people who have a ton of money, their moral compass and their character is just out of whack. You know what I'm saying? They winning in the bank account, but they're not winning in life in terms of character and their moral compass.
Right.
And so he laid it on a stick right there.
Yep.
With how we ought to live our lives despite our success in other realms.
No, I agree with you 100% on that. Hold on. Check. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that because a lot of us are, we get our worth from what we see in our account. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's kind of how this world is set up. Like only the people who have the bread make the decisions, basically.
Right.
I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but our guy Will Smith is, on his promo tour right now for his new album. And a couple of times I've seen him in interviews and he said this about the cliff top.
Cliff top. What's the cliff top?
So we all, on this side of it, we all talk about rock bottom.
Yes.
Right? And so rock bottom is when you at the bottom, you destitute, you don't have anything, a penny to your name, and you always feel like, oh, it can't get no worse than this, but we always know it could get worse.
Yeah,
right.
You're at the lowest of lows.
You're at the lowest of low.
No hope.
Right. And but Will Smith is on the opposite end of that, right? But when you are at rock bottom, what mostly happens is, people look for something else. You know what I'm saying? They look for hope. They look for God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When they hit rock bottom, they look for all of the other things that are just not material. On the other end of that, Will Smith was talking about cliff top, to where he's had all the money, all the sex, all the women, all the houses. And he's like, yo, I'm sitting in this big old house and I have nothing else to buy. I've come to the end of money. You know what I'm saying? And so he feels like and he said it's the same feeling as if you're at rock bottom, but you're at cliff top because there's nothing else to buy. There's nothing else to do. You have everything that you ever wanted.
You've obtained everything.
You obtained everything. You had all
the riches,
the
everything.
riches, all the number one movies. Like he was talking about, there's nobody that's going to even touch him when it comes to number one movies. You know, black, white, or indifferent. Like
Wow.
he's just that guy. He had an incredible run. And so even when you come to the end of money, there is, what else is there? You know what I'm saying? We all have seen where there are people who have all this money and are not happy and
Right.
off themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And unhappy, depressed, anxiety, not fun to be around. You know what I'm
That
saying?
part right there, they're not fun to
They're
be
not
around.
fun to be around because, and most of us, pretty much all of us, land somewhere in the middle, right? Like most of us are not at rock bottom, you know what I'm saying? And most of us are not at the cliff top. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
most of us are somewhere in the middle, but you know, having those examples, those two extremes, let you know that no matter where you are on that spectrum, like you still need a spiritual foundation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like you said in the clip, you know, like what is a 42-year-old man supposed to be like in your kingdom, God? Like what does it look like to you?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not what it looks like to us. You know, we all called. We all are given something, a platform or something. I talked about this today in my newsletter. Go grab that. But we were watching House of David last night, right, in our men's group. And we saw how Saul, you know what I'm saying, he was appointed
Right.
as the king, right? And as soon as he got his first victory, pretty much,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, he
was definitely feeling himself.
he was feeling himself. He erected, you know, statues that gave himself the glory, not
Right.
God. He didn't obey what God said, wipe everybody else out. But he's like, nah, I got to keep him around because I want y'all to see that we did this and we're
Yeah.
going to split the spoils. They weren't even supposed to take the spoils, you know. That even goes back to the first fruits principle, right? The first fruits is supposed to go to God,
Right.
right? No matter what. So he didn't honor that. And then boom, you know, he lost his positioning.
So it's the same thing. We talked about like that, you know, this clip is talking about, or the Wall Street Trapper is talking about, is our character. When we start to feel ourselves, when we get in this position of power and prestige and we have this money, our character goes out the window. So Saul was appointed for a reason, right? In the beginning. But then once he started feeling himself, those reasons were no longer, you know, valid in his eyes. So he's like, you know what? I'm him now.
Right.
So he thought.
Right.
So he thought.
I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a nation that will produce the proper fruit. That's what Jesus said, right? Matthew 21:43. That's what Jesus said. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, I'm gonna give it to somebody else
Yeah.
who's gonna do it the right way, you know. And I've heard that a few times now. Not just from the scripture, but like I've heard that in Jewish tradition. Like Moses wasn't the first one to see the burning bush. He was just the first one that answered the call. Right? Like I've heard that before, and like just reading this verse is like, dang, like a lot of people were called, but few were chosen. Like even the parable of the wedding feast, where, you know, he called all these people and then nobody came, and then he called in people off the street, right,
Yep.
to come to the wedding.
Strangers.
Right, strangers. And then, but somebody was invited, but they didn't have on the wedding garment, so he kicked them out, right?
Right.
So I had to look this up because I was like, yo, he just came off the street. Like, how you going to be mad at him for not having a wedding garment? But when I looked it up, it's like Jewish and ancient tradition that, you know, especially for kings and people with wealth, like they give you garments when you come to the crib, when you come to the house, right? So they give you what you're supposed to wear. So if they give it to you at the door and you don't wear it, you know what I'm saying, that's like the ultimate sign of disrespect. So that's why they kicked him out. Like nah.
You know where they do the same thing at?
Where?
Country clubs.
Do they?
Yes, 1,000%.
Okay,
Like if
you got to enlighten me on that. I'm not.
you gotta look the part. So
Right.
there's a strict dress code. You know what else they do at clubs? If you don't look the part,
Yeah.
nah, you can't get in.
You can't get in.
Can't get in.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know how many times they try to say, "Nah, this ain't it."
Yep.
And you know, what's so funny. I mean, this is kind of messed up, but I remember standing in a club line, and there's these girls in front of us that were not cute.
Oh,
They just weren't cute. Like I'm not. There's no other way to say it.
Right.
Like they just weren't the beauty standard of Hollywood. How they wanted people in the club.
Yeah.
And the bouncer just told her straight up, like, y'all can't get in tonight. They was like,
Man.
what do you mean? It was like, nah, y'all just can't get in. I can't remember what he told her, but he told her something just cold, like straight to her face, like, y'all just don't have the standard that we're looking for tonight.
Yeah. Damn.
I was like, wow. But I get it. It's their establishment. You know what I'm saying? They have the right to refusal. You feel me? Of whoever they want in there, and they want a certain aesthetic.
So
I didn't even think about that. That's crazy. Country clubs. Yeah, you're right.
That thing carried on from Jewish ancient times to today.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's wild. But yeah, man, it's a very delicate situation, man. Like we have a saying for that: easy come, easy go. You know what I'm saying? We have a saying. Like, it's easy to get there. Jadakiss said it's easy to get money, but it's hard to keep it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's easy to I wouldn't even say that it's easy to attain certain status and certain things. You may work hard for it, but you know, especially if it's not given or appointed by God, you have to work even harder to keep it.
And it's the hard part of keeping it is usually because of a decision or a choice that is made, right? That person pretty much faults, like, I wouldn't say alter, but I would say, like, if a person that has prestige and has money and has power, they lack in character, they make a decision or a choice, and then they ultimately end up squandering all those things away based on the decision that they made. And that's what the Wall Street Trapper is talking about. Like, what type of character are you going to exemplify that, you know, when you have all these things, when you have wealth? Like, are you going to still be the man that God has called you to be? Or are you going to be like the single guy like he was talking about in the clip? Like, no, like you want to make sure that you have the right character and you're doing the right things. Like, what if you're a father with all this money, which a lot of people are fathers with all this money? Like, what are you showing to your children? And as us, you know, fathers handling business, like, this is something for us to really, really think about and ponder. Like, we may be called into a position where we have, you know, power or prestige or fame or fortune, whatever.
Right.
Like, are we going to? Is our character going to be put into question? Is our character going to be put into question now that we have these things?
Because our children see that as well.
Exactly.
You know, and I think you know, Saul and Jonathan, which is Jonathan is Saul's son, who's supposed to be the king after him before he squandered his kingship. You know, he, as the story goes, you know, ended up being, you know, a really good friend to David, right? And you know, he saw his father was on some craziness.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like the sons see what's going on with the fathers, like they can see your character. They may not see it when they're young, but as they get older, you know what I'm saying, they start understanding.
Absolutely.
And they see your character. They see, okay, this is what, I may have thought this when I was younger, but now, I'm older. I kind of understand what you're doing.
Or in that case, like with Jonathan, he knew who his father was before he became king, right? And then he saw who his father became after his kingship, right?
Right.
And he was a completely different person.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. Power. Power is a funny drug. It really is a drug, man. Being in the military, I've been around some people who, get that power and start acting different.
Yeah.
They start acting different. And in the military, you pretty much get handed the power, right? Like you have to, you don't have to move up, but you pretty much are pushed into moving up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so there's, mid-level managers, there's managers.
There's different ranks, right?
Different ranks, but, excuse me, you start out 1, 2, 3, 4. By the 5th rank, you're managing somebody. You know what I'm saying? And so that doesn't really take very long to get to E5. Shoot, if you have college credits, I came in as an E3. You know what I'm saying? So I skipped the first 2 just because I had college credits. You know what I'm saying? And so it didn't take me very long at all to get to E5. And so for some people, it doesn't take maybe 2-3 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so they go from no power to a little bit of power. Not a lot, but a little bit. And you can see the change in people. Like, calm down, bro. Like, calm down, And you see that same thing in cops as well. You know what I'm saying? They get a little bit of power and they try to, abuse it. Thank God for body cams now.
Right.
But it's a drug, man. It's a hell of a drug. Like,
power is a drug. One of the best things that how one can, best utilize their power in a way that is honoring God is to be humble.
True.
Use humility.
Sit down.
Yeah, use humility in a way in which God intended for us to use it in terms of everything that He has given us, right? So if He's given us power, and if He's given us a special rank in the military, if He's given us money, if He's given us fame, like, we need to address all those things that have been given to us with humility.
Correct. And model after Jesus, who was the servant king. Right? Like, look at these positions as being a servant.
Right.
Right? Like, the best leaders are the ones that are in service and stay in that mindset. Like, yes, I'm a leader, but, I'm here to serve you all, to make sure that you all get to where you need to be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And in turn, that gets our company or wherever we are to where we need to be.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So taking that example of being a servant leader is the heart posture, that we should have as leaders of our family. You know what I'm saying? Like, even in the household, just being a leader, you really have to be a servant.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, it says, wives, submit to your husbands, but it also says, husbands, love your wives as yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, take care of your wife, be a servant to your wife.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we're supposed to do. Just as Christ loved the church, He was a servant. He died for the church. You know what I'm saying? He died for us. So if you're not willing to do that, it's hard I see why these women don't want to submit to a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Because they're not servants first. So it's like, how you gonna want somebody to submit to you, but you haven't submitted?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, they don't, like, when that scripture is, and I'm going to use the term thrown around because it is thrown around a lot, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And it's weaponized
Yeah,
in
course.
arguments.
Of course,
It is weaponized in arguments, and so men don't realize that, like you said, we have to be the first to submit.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Submit to the calling from God, which
From God.
is
Yep.
to love your wife like Christ loved the church.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's something that it has to be permissible, right? Like, somebody has to let you lead them, right? Like, even anywhere, you know. I know we're talking about relationships right now, but just anywhere, like, you can't lead somebody that doesn't want to be led.
Right.
You know, like the greatest coaches, Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, they always talk about how their star players let them coach them, right? Hard.
Yeah.
So that everybody else will fall in line. So if the leader is submitting to the coach, right, then everybody else falls in line because we say, okay, our best player is submitting to the coach. Like Craig Popovich always talked about, like Tony Parker and Tim Duncan.
Yep.
And, you know, how he let them coach him.
Yeah.
You know, and so now everybody falls in line. And it's
David Robinson, same thing.
David Robinson is the same thing. Like, you have to, excuse me, people have to want to be led and want to be submissive, you know, like men, women, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it has to be a choice that they make. But they're only going to make that choice if they see that you are submitted to something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a conversation. That was an actual conversation that I had with my wife. Like, yo, you know, am I the type of man that you would want to be submitted to? You know what I'm saying? And what do I need to do? You know what I'm saying? To make you not understand, but just to make you want to submit to me. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm submitting to God. This is, you know, how we gonna run it. This is, you know, and it's like, okay, cool. So we have this understanding that I'm not just out here trying to be a taskmaster, you know what I'm saying? But I'm trying to lead as God would lead me.
Right.
You know? And so the women who usually are submissive in that realm, you know, it's because they have a godly man who is also submitted. You know what I'm saying? So it makes it easy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I think that it's easier for people who don't have the posture of like, well, I make all the bread.
Right.
You know,
because money has nothing to do with it.
Right. So when you do have all the bread and you can also humble yourself and submit to the calling of the Lord that he has on your life, and then everything begins to fall into place as it should, as opposed to you trying to force your will and your way in this life.
Yeah.
It's never going to pan out. Like,
yeah. It's not gonna work out the way you think it is.
Yeah.
You know, I heard somebody, you know, that was talking about money can't buy happiness. And I know that people without money are like, yo, I wish I had money so I can find out for myself. But, you know, I push back on that because money can buy you happiness, which is temporary, but it can't buy you joy.
Well, in this clip, we didn't do the full clip, but Miss Sarah says money can't buy you happiness. Money buys you choices. And then those choices, like, well, you know, A or B, whatever, you're going to live with the choices that you make.
Right. You're going to live with the choices that you make. But, you know, a lot of people say happiness is a state of mind, but I have graduated to saying joy. Like, you can be joyous and be happy whether you broke or you rich. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
absolutely.
Like, that's definitely your choice, you know?
Yeah.
Now, money gives you the option to, you know, have some luxuries,
Yeah.
you know, that will put a smile on your face.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you know, it'll definitely grant you some options to have luxuries. Shoot, I just secured a client, and you know, I had a bunch of stuff on my Amazon cart that I was like, I'm not buying this until I secure this client. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And I got that client, and then I press, you know what I'm saying, give me that on the Amazon, and it, you know, and it did make me smile. You know what I'm saying? It afforded me a couple of luxuries that I've been waiting to have, you know, but it didn't bring me happiness and or joy,
Right.
you know, because those things were already there no matter what. So just being able to understand the difference, you know, and like Wall Street Trapper said, you know, like, God, how do you want me to do? You know what I'm saying? What do you want me to do
Right.
with what you've given me? You know, and that's a lot of times we forget where it comes from. Forget that we are the resource, not the source.
A lot of people don't realize that. They don't realize that, and they think that they are the source. They think that they're self-made. They think that, like, everything that they have, it was all because of their doing and their hard work. And they don't realize, like, yo, you wouldn't even be here, let alone like have the ability to do this, that, and the third if it wasn't for him.
Right. Like, we've already debunked this hard work thing. Like, if hard work was the determining factor, you know, Jamaicans would have all the money. You feel me? Like, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hard work is not the determining factor. It is a factor,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, God gives us these gifts, but, you know, we have to turn them into actual talents. You know what I'm saying? We have to turn them into actual skills. You know, like, we may have the propensity to do certain things, but we have to work hard at, you know,
Yeah,
turning it into
man, it's like the 6'7" dude that don't hoop.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like,
Like, you got all that height,
yeah,
and you not dunking the basketball. Like, what's going on?
yeah.
Man?
So I was just like, that, you know, that's our point exactly right
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Like, God can give you the height, but unless you put in the work, the height means nothing
means
in the basketball world. You know what I mean?
Nothing. So, but you know, I was thinking about you know, Rick Ross. You know, he always talking about he's self-made. He even got an album called Self-Made. You know, and I was like, man. And then a Tupac lyric came up. I was like, dang, they been saying that for. I'm a self-made millionaire, love thug living out of prison, pistols in the air. You know, and I'm like, dang, Pac said that in the '90s. Like, and when I was in the industry heavy around the time that Wiz Khalifa was coming out, like 2009, 2010, 11, you know, we all thought that Wiz Khalifa was like independent. You know what I'm saying? And then come to find out, like, he was being backed by a label the whole time.
Oh,
Yeah. And then if you dig in a little bit deeper, it's a lot of quote unquote independent artists and rappers who weren't really independent. It's just that their mixtapes they were putting their mixtapes out independently, quote unquote, but the labels were pushing them and giving them money to promote their mixtapes to make it seem like they were independent. And, you know, a lot of that got exposed in the mid 2000s as well. But that's what they put over our eye. Like, yo, I'm a self-made. I made this on my own. I did this and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you didn't. And that's not to take away anything from what these people are doing. Like, yes, you still had to put in the work. You still had to be late night in the studio. You still had to, you know, late night at your job. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I got my store, like, I was putting in hours and hours to make it work. You know what I'm saying? But I will never be like, well, I did this on my own. I didn't get it on my own.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I just didn't. you know. And so, but I had to work hard to keep it. I had to work hard to get to the point where I could, even accept it. But that doesn't mean that it was self-made. Which is crazy to think. But in our arrogance as humans, we want to be the God. We want to ignore all of the evidence around that's surrounding us and put it on ourselves. Which is funny because on the opposite end, when stuff goes wrong, we want to blame everybody else except ourselves.
Right.
And the decisions that we made.
Yeah. No accountability.
Yeah, no accountability. Which is, part of the human condition, as we call it.
Well, I think this is a good clip, and I think, people should really honestly take a look in the mirror, right? And no matter where you are, in this, in your journey on the socioeconomic status line, if you will, and just think about like the type of person that you are, like what type of and ask yourself, like, what type of person am I, like, and based on where I'm at and based on whatever prestige or what type of job title I got, whatever, if I have employees underneath me, like how, like if I were to, if someone were to ask them like, oh, what do you think about, so-and-so, like what would they say about me and how I treat them and the character, and do they see me as a servant leader being in the position that I am? If someone were to ask my kids, like, what would they say about me? If someone were to ask my wife, what would they say about me? If somebody asked my girlfriend, what would they, like, all these things, like, people, we all need to take a look in the mirror, right?
Right.
And ask that question, like, what would people, if somebody were to ask somebody about me, what would they say? What would they say?
Yeah, I mean, and we can look at the fruits, look at the fruits of the Spirit. The kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a nation that will produce the proper fruit, and he gives us the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians 5, I believe. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. Like those are, the fruits of the Spirit. Not money.
Right. Yeah. Money's not in there.
Money's not on there. Money's not on there. Love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are the things that we are measured by, not how much prosperity we have. God definitely does give prosperity. That's a Bible word. I know people like to say, "Oh, prosperity gospel preachers." I mean, it's prosperity is a gospel word, but it doesn't mean that that's just a byproduct of these fruits.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's a byproduct. That's not the result. Like, yeah. Like, of course, if you're in the gym all the time, of course you're going to have a nice handle. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just a byproduct. Like, you in there, you gotta. So yeah, man. Any final thoughts you wanted to leave?
No, I mean, other than taking a look at ourselves in the mirror and asking ourselves the question, like, what would people say about me? What do people think about me? How do my, especially when it comes to our family, like, what would our family say about our kids? If you have kids, like, we have to be so cognizant of what we do, what we say, how we carry ourselves, because they're always watching, because more is caught than taught.
The watcher.
More is caught than taught. So they will catch us doing way more than what we try to teach them through the lessons that we want to give them as we sit them down and talk their ears off. Like, I guarantee you, more is caught than taught.
Those lectures, they like, okay, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't want to hear that.
They don't want to hear it.
But
they still got to hear it. They still gonna get these lectures.
They still got to hear it, but I'm saying they're gonna see how you move.
Correct. But it's all encompassing. It's not one or the other. You can't stop the lectures or the talks or the sit downs because you know that they're not necessarily listening. But like I always bring this up, you know, my kids come back to me and be like, "Yo, I remember you said X, Y, Z, you know, so many years ago." You know, like I remember something you said. Blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got to keep talking because I don't know what you actually heard.
Yeah.
I don't know what you actually caught from this hour-long conversation that I had with you. I don't know what you actually caught and took away from it. So I got to keep talking. But also, you know, we're supposed to be the examples.
Yeah, there's a couple times where my son has shut me up, not like to shut me up, but he will finish my sentence, and I'll be like, "Oh, you've been listening."
You've been listening.
Like, yeah,
that's good. That's good. Train a child in the way that they should go. So when they old, they will not depart. So you know it's your job now. To instill in them these values and these things, you know, and it's on them whether they listen or not. That's not on you.
Yeah,
that's on them. But it's on you to instill in them these values and these morals and these ways of God. You know, so that they do have something to fall back on, even if they turn their back. You know, like I did in my 20s, you know what I'm saying? Like that whole decade, I was just like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I knew, so if I would have died in that thing, so I thank God that I didn't, but if I would have been gone and dead, like, I would have had no excuse because I knew, you know, like my mother taught me from birth, just like your kids, you know, like they going to know. And so when they come to their senses, hopefully they come to them sooner than later.
I know, man.
Amen. I thank God for my oldest son. Like he's really like focused on God, you know. So I thank God that he's not making the same mistakes that I did.
Yeah.
You know. So, man, great talk today. You know, we're going to holler at y'all next time. We appreciate you stopping by and listening to Fathers Handling Business. I'm Cali, that's Donté. We'll catch y'all next week.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering as you navigate the rewarding journey of fatherhood. Don't forget to follow us on socials, join the conversation, and share your own experiences. We're here to support and inspire each other, one episode at a time. Until next time, keep empowering the dad in you.